This is Monday, May 17th, the broadband meeting for Rappahannock County. And I can tell you that I received a message from Mr. Whitson and Mr. Frazier that they weren't going to be able to attend in person, but they are on Zoom. We can, now, and the rest of us are here. We can all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Moment of silence. Thank you. Next, we're on to the agenda. First of all, Ms. Secretary, thank you so very much for all of your efforts on the minutes. If I can have a motion to adopt the agenda. Smith and Mr. Parrish. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you very much. We need to check to make sure that they can hear us, or we good?
They can.
Okay.
Mr. Whitson was muted.
Okay.
Voted aye.
Thank you. Good to hear you. All right, now we're on to the minutes for adoption. Did have a couple of things I saw. One, Miss Color spells her name with a C, not a K. That was on page 4. Yes. Anyone else on the minutes?
Coffee, make a coffee. It's C-O-F-E-Y.
On page 9, more providers such as it looks like Venison, but it's supposed to be Verizon, I bet. Yeah. Well, you are in Rappahannock, so I understand the Venison.
It shows a word, it doesn't tell you what it's long.
Yes. I just appreciate the amount of work you went to do these minutes and the others. Any other comments on the minutes? If not, I'd entertain a motion to adopt with the few changes.
I'd make a motion that we adopt the minutes as amended.
Mr. Parrish, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. All right. We are now moving into the public comment period. And I don't know if there's anyone in the courtroom that would like to speak. You
I'm
would?
the only public person here, so.
Oh, there's a gentleman behind you. You'll let everyone know your name and your district. Don't need district, just your name is good.
This is Mark Anderson. I am in the Piedmont district.
Sit on. Top, right on the top.
There you go.
Mark Anderson from the Piedmont district, AKA the Valley of Broadband Death. Okay, I've just got 3 brief comments. I've read through the body requirements for the application that we've been talking about submitting. We can do, in my opinion, we can do the notice of application fairly easily by July 27th. The problem is you have 7 more weeks to put in the complete application. And based on my reading of it and the requirements, somebody's going to go through a lot of pain and stress over those 7 weeks to try to get that together. Some of the things they're calling for, I don't think we have the information yet. To me, it appears we're going to have to get down to a map of broadband access for every structure in the county. Some 4,200 houses, businesses, nonprofits, et cetera. And I don't think we have that level of detail anywhere yet. Possibly DHCD does have it with their secondary sources, but I've not seen it around here. And that detail includes what type of internet provider they is, what system they're on, et cetera. And I've never seen that. I look forward to seeing that. If they have it, we can come up with it. The second point I was going to make is to do this body application and win, which is the whole point in my view, we need to have an engineering design plan level of detail, almost in advance of even starting to fill out the application, but certainly simultaneous with doing the application. That's going to, I don't think we have the resources in the county to do that. We're going to have to bring in somebody from outside and pay them. The one good thing I can say about that is the Virginia County Association guy that spoke a couple of months ago said there is money available from economic development funds specifically to fund that type of effort, and that may be easier to pursue. I don't know if we can get it in time for this, but we could pursue it anyway for our own purposes. And finally, my favorite bugbear is we're going to need GIS facility in order to fill out this application. And the reason I know this is they call in the application for an appendix with polygon shape files. And the first thing I said is, what the heck is a polygon shape file? So I looked it up. It's something you get out of your GIS system quite easily. You probably just hit a button and it generates a polygon shape file. But we don't have a way of doing it otherwise. It's like a filled in map on a portion of a geographic area. And they do require that to show. So I think it's going to be difficult, but I think eventually we'll get to where we can put together winning applications on a lot of these different grants. And then finally, I just saw the American Rescue Plan Act interim rule, which seems to call for projects designed to deliver 100 megabits per second download, 100 megabits per second upload, or at least a project that's scalable to that later. Scalable, that just means put in more money and more effort and somehow it increases the speed. We've been struggling for 4 years to come up with a way of 25 megabits download, 3 megabits upload. Now we have to jump to 100. I don't think too many households in this county right now have 100. If they do, they're on somebody's fiber optic with really, really high volume service. Our household gets by with 5/1, and that's the best we can do in our area. So that is another challenge, and I don't say don't put in for the American Rescue Plan Act money anyway, because I think that proposed rule is daffy for a rural situation like we're in. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else during public comment in the courtroom? Seeing none. Anyone, we have a healthy Zoom list of people. Anybody in Zoom world want to raise your hand in the way Zoom does for a public comment?
Mr. Thornton. Still on mute. Go ahead, Mr. Thornton.
Very good, thank you. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, sir.
Oh, perfect. Okay. I would just, I missed the last meeting, but from 2 meetings ago, I just wanted to thank, I believe it was the chair who stated that, you know, we may have to shoot for something less than the 25/3 in order to reach a large number of people initially who have something significantly less than that or none at all. So I I know, God knows, as I've said before, I'd love to have gigabit to my house. You know, that would be like way cool. But I think we have to acknowledge that, getting something, even if it's not, gold plated, would be better than what most have, or large segment of our citizens have now. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Anybody else who would like to speak from Zoom, please raise your Zoom hand. We have Ellen Chamberlain.
All right, Ms. Chamberlain?
Hello, can you all hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's under my wife's name, Ellen. Just had a question about, I guess, I haven't been to many of your meetings, but I just wanted to know how the funding works, and if you have a broadband project going on and it's being held up through Rappahannock Electric, is there any kind of partial funding, or how does the funding work, I guess, for broadband projects?
I'm not sure we have that answer at the moment, but I hope some of the people that are on the Zoom with us that we're going to be speaking in presentation period will be able to answer some of that as well. Anyone else on Zoom? Seeing none, I'm going to move forward and close public comment. And we're going into the informational presentations part of the agenda. We have probably at least 3 speakers, so this will hopefully be very informative for everyone on the call as well as in the room. Our first presentation is with Mr. Hamilton from DHCD. Ms. Holmes, who was here, Dr. Holmes, who was here at our last meeting, has assigned Mr. Hamilton to us, which I think is marvelous. He and I had a brief phone call the other day just to give him an idea of where we were. I also shared the minutes from last month so that he would know what Dr. Holmes had said. And Mr. Hamilton, if you are ready, we look forward to hearing from you.
Hey, good evening, everyone. Happy to be here. Also, my compliments to the secretary. Those minutes were very, very informative. So hopefully I'm not going to repeat too much of what Dr. Holmes talked about last week. I had a very, very brief presentation I prepared. It's very unimpressive aesthetically, but hopefully the information is still somewhat helpful. So I'm going to, am I allowed to share my screen, or I can also just kind of read off my screen?
I think you should be able to share your screen. I've made you a co-host. Give it a shot.
Okay. Is this working? Sorry, I don't do a whole lot of screen sharing.
Yes, I can see your screen. Just make that presentation mode to make it full screen there.
There we go. Oh, wow, this looks nice. All right, so I am a broadband planner on staff with the DHE Office of Broadband. I'm one of the 2 broadband planners we have, but the other one is currently on extended leave. What I do is I call it the early stage of broadband planning deployments. So it's basic planning assistance, it's outreach to localities to kind of see where they all are, see how they're doing. In some cases, I've spoken to localities and they're done, they solved it. In other cases, they're just getting started and there's plenty of folks right in the middle. And so for really anyone along the process, I help with making them aware of the resources they have, as well as serving as liaison between the office and them. I also have some mapping and GIS experience that I love to contribute whenever I can. Not exactly a geotechnician, but I can and have done some mapping, and I am working on the state broadband map as well. By the way, the structure that I have for this little brief presentation is based on the 3 questions I got from the chair when we spoke on the phone. Those were, what can I do? What can the county do? And then what's next? What are the next steps? And so what the county can do is, and it sounds like the county has begun working on this process, but identifying folks who are unserved where they are, and talking to local providers in the area. It sounds like y'all know where they are. It's a matter of seeing what kind of partnerships y'all can brew up. Maybe you'll get lucky and they'll actually tell you, maybe service gaps that exist. Usually they won't, but you'll uncover that information slowly over time. It's important to also identify what resources the county has to offer. It can be either in-kind resources or direct financial resources. It really depends on the nature of the relationship. We also recommend at some point publishing an RFI if you don't have an existing partnership that you feel super strongly about. This is just get an idea of who all is willing to work with you, what you can accomplish with them, what kind of project you might be able to design, or if there's interest in a project at all. And you're going to take all this information that you've gathered and kind of start thinking about how to turn that into a real project. Because at this point, you should theoretically have some partners that you want to work with. You should generally have an idea of where service is needed. And at this point, you can start to think about, okay, so what would a project actually look like? This is when you might start thinking about very, very high level, engineering work. And this is where you start making basic decisions about, okay, does fiber make sense? Does wireless make sense? That also depends on the provider. Some providers only do one or the other, not both. In some cases, to serve the entire county, it really might take a hybrid approach. So, there are parts of the county that probably have the density for fiber, and other areas likely don't. And so that kind of engineering work is usually done more by the provider that you're working with. So it's not really a big concern if the county doesn't have a whole lot of engineering expertise all on their own. And, similarly for any mapping and GIS, usually providers have some kind of capacity for that on their side. And that's where a lot of that data gets generated with the shapefiles. And I'm happy to take any questions about that too. I actually am the one who got that requirement implemented, or at least asked for it. And then depending on who you're working with, you might want to think about, is this project going to be one big project, universal coverage? I know that's really what we've been pushing for this coming body cycle, but it's not a requirement at all. In some cases, it makes sense to work with 2 different providers on 2 projects, or have 2 providers together on a project, or in some cases, there might be a project that's big enough that you want to phase it out over time. So, play around with that, see what makes sense. It also depends on the funding. And so kind of a lower level view of that, more short term, the next steps are just compiling data where you can find it, seeing what data that the county has. If the county has GIS system, it sounded like y'all were talking to the school system about student service to see who was unserved and served, or who didn't have broadband at home. That can be a good starting point. General surveys can also be helpful on a countywide basis, and sometimes you can even target them if you have an idea where there might be a service gap, but you're not sure. Just always, that's one of those things you also have to make sure that there's a way to respond to the survey, not online. That is a trap that is often fallen into, including by myself. And generally, you just want to identify where the gaps in service are. One of your also immediate next steps is, like I said, to get in contact with the local providers, see who's interested in a grant application, and see if you can get some idea of where they serve, where they don't serve, maybe where they want to expand, and if they're going to expand with or without county intervention. And finally, in the short term, you want to think about what the county can invest in. County systems can look like things like waiving permitting fees, or allowing the use of county land for broadband projects. This can be monetary. I'm under the impression that the county is getting some American Rescue Plan money. A lot of localities are. That can be used towards broadband according to the Treasury, and would make a very good match, or outright just funding towards a broadband project provider. Service districts are also an option as well. Just it's like a special tax district. A little bit of taxation for the folks who are getting served to kind of fund the infrastructure expansion, and also manpower. You don't really need an entire, department all dedicating their whole time to this. It really is just a few folks working kind of part-time on it, having someone who would write the application. Sometimes a provider can write the application, but usually the locality doesn't. The locality has to submit it in the end. Thinking about, okay, who's going to start trying to compile this data and start doing something with it. It sounds a lot more intimidating than it actually turns out to be in a lot of cases. So those are generally what you want to think about. And finally, I had some time for questions or discussion that may not quite fit in with the structure of this meeting, but I'm happy to take any questions anyone might have, either now or at a later portion time for it. Thank you.
So I have a question. Keep mentioning GIS. Is it possible to proceed or achieve what we want without using GIS?
It's possible, and actually, I want to say a lot of the counties that have been awarded, especially before this last year, did it without much in the way of GIS. So it is doable. And also, I am happy to assist in whatever way I can with GIS work. I'm happy to. So
Thank you. Because our situation is twofold. One is it's fairly expensive, I think, to implement, and then it's an annual cost too. But also, it's one of the things that's saving the county from being developed because nobody can really do it, through the computer. They're going to have to come to the courthouse, and that's a real safety catch for us against developers. Realtors love GIS, I know, but I'm just thinking it's with being the only county in Virginia without it, it keeps us unique, and in my opinion, the more unique that this county can stay, the more attractive we are. So in the long run, so I'm glad to hear that it is possible to do this without GIS. Thank you.
And at some point you will have to, for body, submit some form of shapefile that usually does come from a provider's GIS capacity, because in most cases they don't want those kind of files just kind of hanging around whoever's hands. So and like a lot of locality, the locality doesn't need it, and even if somehow the locality and the providers don't have GIS capability, we'll work something out. We'll make it work.
Yeah, I just had a couple questions. This is going from memory from last month. Is identifying potential partners and also underserved areas. That's things on your list that's on the county to-do list, but my recollection from last month is that those are things you can help us with as well.
Yes, I think most everything on the county to-do list are things I can assist with. I can help, find contacts, do introductions, things like that. I put them on the county to-do list more so because the county does, I suppose, takes the lead on some of that, but that doesn't mean I'm not involved and not helping.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Hamilton, I don't remember how long you've been with DHCD. How many body application processes have you been through?
This will actually be the first I've gone from the very beginning to the very end. I joined right in the middle of the cycle last year. The office, I'm trying to think, like quadrupled in size. And so we're getting used to a bit of structural difference. It used to really just be, Dr. Holmes and I think two other people. Now there's a handful of us. And so this will be the first I've done from start to finish.
It's definitely our first, so we'll be working closely with you, I'm sure. With regards to the VATI application itself, do you know how much of that is done by the county versus in conjunction with the partner or partners that are selected? I have to believe they've got experience from past attempts. So I'm hoping it's more of a joint application versus one side or the other.
It's definitely a joint process. There are some questions that most localities wouldn't really be able to answer. Like, I think there are specific questions about things like, okay, how is the network going to be designed? And that is a Is a question meant to receive a very technical answer, an answer that usually I can't even quite understand because it goes into the specifics of, network design and fiber types and things like that. So there are some questions where the county will be better suited to answer, others where the provider needs to have a hand in writing the response, and some where you can kind of split responsibility based on really just who has the time or who knows more about a certain subject. So it really depends.
I can tell you that in the first round, when I was involved, it was a completely joint process with the provider and passing information back and forth, that questions and answers back and forth until we finally were happy with what the results were before we submitted it.
Is there some sort of project management timeline that would give you an idea? We've got 7 weeks or whatever we've got at this point to let us know how far behind we are, or boy, you better catch up on these next 2 stages, or that anybody, you, Lonnie, or Mr. Curry, have seen?
I haven't seen anything. I mean, obviously there are certain critical path items without resolving, you have no application, one of which is partner and willing partner for the time cycle. So I would think that would be your number one question to answer, and to determine whether you're going to swing for this cycle for countywide, or this cycle for a small area, or next cycle. Obviously, the funding seems to be coming at us faster and faster and faster, but we need a good project to invest those dollars.
Right, and there's not a set timeline of how, other than like the deadline for applying. There's not really a set deadline for you have to have this done by this date, or else it's not going to happen. I believe I've seen both ends of the spectrum, where some companies have worked on a project, starting like, earlier than now. They start the very beginnings of, okay, we're identifying gaps in service, or we have a partner we want to work with, or we've been talking this over and I think we're going to go for it now. And so, you can start really slow and really early. You can also, we've also seen applications that didn't really get rolling until that notice of application in the summer. So it really, I want to say that the more time, the better, but that doesn't mean the more time is guaranteed to make it better. And likewise, a shorter timeline, if you don't really get properly started till like June or July, isn't going to tank the application by any means.
All right, Mr. Whitson or Mr. Fraser, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I guess I have a couple, but I'm just not exactly sure how we're going to make that timeline that Mark had talked about earlier during public comment. So I guess our board needs to try and isolate somebody and direct them to make that happen.
Well, you shouldn't look at it as a 7-week timeline per se. The timeline should start, I guess, now. The notice of application is late because we want to give folks the opportunity to get involved later in the game. But a lot of this can and maybe should be started now.
So the actual application due date is September 14th.
I believe so.
Mr. Whitson?
No, nothing. Thank you. Thanks for the concise presentation.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Hamilton. We've got, oh, yes, ma'am. Go for it.
Mr. Hamilton, this is Margaret Bond, I am the scribe here. Could I get your contact information? Because I may need to follow up when I.
No, we have it.
You have it? Okay. I may call you, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Next, we have, if you all will go along with this, I'm going to let the gentleman from Chantel go next with the RDoC update. I believe we have Mr. Meenan, Mr. Bird,
Mr. Kyle.
Mr. Kyle, and I don't know if Mr. French is there or not, but gentlemen, I don't know who's taking the lead, but we're definitely interested to hear any updates you have for us.
Yeah, so I will lead the presentation. So I will share my screen now.
Let me give you that permission.
Okay. No problem.
Go right ahead.
All right. All right. Is everybody seeing it?
Nope.
No.
No? All right. That's not good.
There we go.
Okay. So thank you all for including us in.
And
this
we are
month's-
seeing the presenter mode. You may have dual mode.
Okay. All right. Let me. Well, not sure.
One of those buttons down there does it. I've done it before.
Yeah.
I think if you click the ellipses, it'll. There you go.
There you go.
There you go. Okay. Yeah. So like I was saying, thank you all for including us this evening to kind of give you all an update on where we are RDOF wise, and also kind of go over what we might be able to help with. Like Mr. Hamilton was just going over some of our other capabilities. We have met with you all before, so sorry for any repeat info that you all might be hearing, but quick background on us as a company. We are a 118-year-old company that are publicly traded based out of Edinburgh, Virginia, in the Shenandoah Valley. We have historically offered broadband, cable TV, phone, and wireless service. The wireless service most recently coming through our affiliate agreement with Sprint. And a quick note on that, of course, everybody's aware of the news that T-Mobile has acquired Sprint. And a provision in that agreement we had with Sprint was that at any point, if Sprint were to be acquired, our affiliate agreement could be ended as well. So that is where we are as a company. That is just our wireless segment that has been acquired. That has resulted here in a month or two when it closes with a almost $2 billion asset purchase by T-Mobile. So we will be spending a lot of that money right back into our broadband initiatives. Obviously, with our 3-segment business going down to just 2, we have a lot of work to build our broadband business up to the size that we think we're capable of, and putting all of our efforts into that. We are just over 1,000 employees, and we are a profitable business, which we like to point out, not from an egotistical standpoint, but just when we have these discussions with localities like yourself, we don't want it to come across that we need you all to provide us funding to make a project work from the get-go. Of course, any subsidy helps. Everybody would appreciate help in terms of the capital expense that we put into projects, but it's not absolutely necessary. But we just like to work through whatever the partnership can be day one, and how we can build upon that. So in terms of our broadband offering, we currently offer 3 different offerings within that. Our most recent initiative for more dense areas than Rappahannock is our Glow Fiber. That is the fiber to the home, multi-gig speed, all fiber optic, symmetrical network that we're really, like I said, targeting dense residential clusters that are historically monopolistic markets. So whether it's Comcast or Cox or the like that has historically been the sole provider for that area, we are targeting those markets such as Harrisonburg, Stanton, Front Royal, and Winchester, closest to Rappahannock right now, to offer the triple play of internet, video, and phone. Beam Internet is another recent initiative that we started just at the end of fourth quarter of 2020. That is what we're utilizing as our fixed wireless offering to the under or unserved areas of counties. This is, just think of a carrier grade network utilizing macro and micro small cell towers to offer this fixed wireless broadband to these rural areas that have much less density, much less homes passed per mile. It's more economic to build and quicker to market. Obviously, we don't have plows and things in the ground to get the network built out. It's more of a one one or multiple cell site construction process that then, obviously once live offers service to multiple homes immediately. And through this, we offer 25, 50, and 100 megabyte speeds, and voice is also capable over this. And then our existing historical cable markets, we do offer speeds up to 1 gig on that, and that is also triple play. And we have a pretty extensive service area covering West Virginia, Pennsylvania, and Maryland with all of these different markets. And with that being said, we're thinking the VATI process is obviously the hottest topic for counties like yourself to be talking through and definitely considering. And we have history in doing this. These applications are not new to us. We work with Lonnie in his office there quite frequently. So with that, I'll turn it over to Brian Bird, who will kind of dive into that process a little bit more. Brian?
Yeah, so first off, I'll apologize if you hear a screaming baby in the background. I just have my work from home sound effects on. But so when it comes to VATI, it's actually a very timely discussion. As you've all have pointed out, that there's just a tremendous growth in focus and funding on broadband, particularly over the past year. And Chantel, we've been involved in a lot of that. We have a lot of grant and RFP experience. So whether that's partnering directly with counties through funding that they have allocated from their own general funds, or whether that be CARES Act funding or now American Recovery Plan funding. So we have kind of direct county experience. Another level on that, we have experience with VATI grants. We participated last year in the grant process. And then also at the federal level, the main reason we're here is to talk about RDOF, the federal grant program that we were awarded in Rappahannock County, and to give an update on that. So we've got a lot of experience on this. And then another thing that makes Chantel unique that Stuart just went over is, the fact that we as a single company have this multi-technology approach, right? So we've got a robust fiber network. We're doing a lot of fiber to the home, but as is the case, fiber to the home is expensive. It's not, we agree wholeheartedly that it's not going to be the solution for every home. It would be wonderful if it could be, but it really is cost prohibitive. And so we believe that fixed wireless is part of that solution as well. And so with Chantel, rather than having to mix and match different companies and try to coordinate VATI applications with a fixed wireless provider and a wireline provider, though obviously that's still the county's prerogative. With Chantel, you have a partner who is able to do both of those things and to really get a lot of synergies and efficiency out of pushing a fiber network out as far as we can into the county, and then layering fixed wireless on top of that. And so one of the big things that's been brought up again a couple times tonight is identifying these VATI eligible areas. You have to be below 25.3, and that's really a large task, is figuring out where do we even submit this application for? How do we demonstrate that these areas are unserved? There's a lot of local knowledge, obviously, in the county, but we have to be able to demonstrate that. And fortunately, like Lonnie being here today to give a presentation, the DHCD team is just incredibly helpful and collaborative and works with providers and counties to try to make this happen. But given our experience and our thinking about this, Chantel is doing a lot of work in trying to identify what we believe are the unserved areas. And so that's kind of in process now for us. And that would be something that if we were to enter into a partnership, we would obviously come to you and look for feedback on areas that are kind of hot spots or sore spots for where there is no service today. That would be prime candidates for a VATI application. And kind of along with that, another effort that we're currently performing is what a high level kind of initial network design would look like. There's a lot of pieces that are coming together in all of this. We've got the RDOF application. we've got a fiber network, we've got fixed wireless capabilities. And so, as we're laying all of this out, we have to look, where is the density? Where do we think the unserved homes are? Where are we building as part of our RDOF effort? What additional fiber is going to be laid as part of that? How can we kind of leverage that? Where is our existing fiber infrastructure? What's the capacity of that fiber infrastructure? Are there unserved homes near that fiber that would make sense to build? Is there some density there? And then on top of that, then where are the pockets that it would make most sense to hit with fixed wireless as well? So there's a lot of moving parts and pieces, and we're, like I said, we're kind of in progress now and trying to reconcile and put all those together. But, like again, has already been mentioned, September 14th is the application deadline. The only firm date that has to be hit, Lonnie, correct me if this is, if I'm misspeaking here, but my understanding is the only firm date before that we really would have to hit if we were to enter into a partnership is that July 27th notice of application. There's not a whole lot of detail. We don't have to have the network design and the dollar figures all figured out by that point. But if you fail to submit your notice of application, then you are unable to submit an application later on. So that's really the date that we would have to march to, again, if we were to enter into a VATI partnership, again, which we're very interested in doing. We would really like to continue conversations and sit down and kind of talk in more detail, especially as our kind of, unserved identification and initial network design efforts continue to mature over the coming weeks. But again, that would be the date that you can't miss, because if you miss that one, then you're ineligible to submit an application after that. So I just wanted to touch base real quick on VATI, because again, that is, July 27th is not that far away, which is kind of crazy to say, but it's just around the corner. And so is relevant, and again, part of what we think we can layer on and on what we're already doing. And with that, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Dan to talk about our RDOF award areas in your county, and then we'll take any questions that you all have.
Thanks, Brian, and thanks, Debbie and Gary, for having us here this evening. We've been talking a lot already, so I'm going to kind of go brief and quick, and I'll certainly open it up to questions at the end. So RDOF, which stands for Rural Digital Opportunity Fund, Chantel participated in this federal auction managed by the FCC, and we were very pleased to win the opportunity to have funding to build broadband to approximately 895 homes in Southeast Rappahannock County. Okay. Right now, based on some preliminary engineering, we feel that it'll probably take approximately 12 cell towers to effectively provide beam broadband service to these 895 unserved homes. At this time, we estimate a total cost of about $1.2 million, or just under $1,300 per home, to provide broadband to these homes. However, the RDOF subsidy is going to pay about 61% of that cost, or $708,000 of the initial capital costs. Okay. And that subsidy, that $708,000, is paid in equal annual disbursements over a 10-year period. All right. So the federal government will pay us $71,000 a year to offset our cost to initially construct. Okay. Now, we can use that funding to offset operating expenses, but I just presented it here as an offset to capital costs, right? So we have $1.2 million to construct, but then we have a lot of additional annual operating expenses once we build that network, right? That we factored into our model. Now I'm going to take an opportunity here to show you where these locations are. So this this slide has a lot of color. I apologize for that. If you see there in the center left, that's obviously Rappahannock County. And the southeastern portion, I've labeled Chantel Ardoff. So that's where the 895 underserved homes are located, okay? And just to the south there, across the county border, there's another Chantel Ardoff area, and that's a similar award that we won for northwestern Madison County. And because the areas are so close, we're kind of looking at these two projects as one, at least right now. But they have we receive similar funding, similar amount of cell sites, similar homes for that area as well. Okay. All right. And you also see in this note that there are other portions of your county that were awarded RDOF RDOF funding, but that's probably primarily SpaceX, satellite provided broadband. That, to my knowledge, is not yet commercially launched. Okay, next slide. All right, so here's, again, Rappahannock County, as well as Madison County. And after we won the auction to provide broadband to your county, we had to submit an engineering analysis of how we would provide broadband to those 895 homes. And at a very high level, our engineers put together this plan that you see before you. Again, it's a little busy, but essentially it shows between 11 and 13 cell sites to provide the beam fixed wireless broadband to those 895 customers. Okay, next slide, please. So where are we now? So we submitted the Chantel FCC long form application. It was a required application after we won the auction. It was a detailed engineering plan, although preliminary engineering plan. And that map you just saw was part of it, right? We said, hey, this is how we would cover these locations. It would require this amount of cell sites in these general locations. The FCC and Chantel both know that those locations will change, right? It's land use. Nothing ever happens exactly as you have planned, right? But it was just a FCC check to make sure we know how to build a wireless network to cover homes, right? After we submitted that application, we then sat down with the FCC virtually and reviewed our application, had some good discussions. We have some additional information we need to provide for them, and then we'll probably meet up again in third quarter this year. And hopefully we get through that long form process and get an approval by the end of third quarter of this year. If that happens, we hope to start cell site development in 2022, if not earlier. And then by rule, we need to have a build out schedule that accomplishes 40% of the homes by the end of year 3, 60% of the homes by the end of year 4, and 80% by the end of year 5. And our hope is that we beat those milestones. Okay. Next slide, please. Okay, variables. I couldn't think of a better way to say this, right? So as I touched on, the preliminary design is just that. It's a preliminary. How would you, if you could just put a cell site anywhere, where would you put it, right? Well, all that's going to change as we go through the land use process after we complete the FCC long form application. And then we'll start talking about, hey, are there any new towers that existed prior to us doing our preliminary design? And if so, could we leverage those towers instead of building new towers, right? Should we consider small cell towers versus traditional tall towers? The answer is yes, likely. In fact, our proposal for those 12 towers, if we had to build them all, they would all generally be the small cell type tower, about 100 foot above ground level, as opposed to 200, 300, 400 foot above ground level, right? And then obviously we would need to talk up to the property owner, see if they're interested in allowing a tower on their property, zoning implications, and construction costs. Then we need to think about, hey, every one of those cell sites need to be connected back to our switch to provide the service. Well, typically you do that with fiber. You have fiber connectivity, bringing that cell site back to the Chantel switch, if you will. Well, if there was a lot of fiber in the southeastern portion of Rappahannock County, we probably wouldn't be talking about an RDOF award, right? So we have some gaps with fiber availability for these 13 cell sites. And what we said to the FCC is that because of that gap, we'll likely require a good bit of microwave to provide that connectivity back. If there's no fiber there, we got to get it back somehow. We use microwave. Okay. Now, those are the variables. Those are the risks, if you will. And then we have a lot of opportunities out there. And as I mentioned, there may be new towers in Rappahannock County that we didn't initially contemplate. Also, there may be new towers in adjacent counties that are close to the county border that may also provide some level of the beam service to Rappahannock County customers. And then most importantly, an opportunity that Gary and Debbie brought to us, the Rappahannock Electric Cooperative has a middle mile fiber network. And that is certainly an opportunity for Chantel to consider a partnership, right, to bring fiber to these cell sites that would be required to support the beam fixed wireless service. A little update on REC. We have had a very good conversation with that company. We've got a non-disclosure agreement in place. Our engineers are sharing information with their engineers about fiber plans. And, at this point in the dance, if you will, I think there's some real possibilities here. It's going to take some time, but I think there's certainly a lot of good crossover between our two companies, and I sincerely want to thank you all for bringing that opportunity to us. Okay.
So in quick summary, we are very committed to expanding our investment there in Rappahannock over and above what we're already in process of doing through RDOF, like Dan mentioned. We want to continue this discussion about what other broadband needs you have outside of that RDOF area and how best we can partner to do that together. Obviously, this includes the engineering analysis to figure out how best can we utilize the funding methods available, whether that's to subsidize getting fiber to the other regions, or is it just additional fixed wireless areas that we can start talking about as well. We are, like Brian walked through, we're committed to partnering with you all on a VATI application. That's obviously a very collaborative initiative that we go through, with that first milestone just being the 27th of July that we formally announced that we are going to pursue an application. And then, like mentioned before, about 7 weeks later that we complete that application and formalize that as well. So with that's our quick presentation about where we are and where we're hoping to continue with you all. And with that, I'll turn it back to you all.
Thank you very much. That was a very nice presentation to bring us all back to the same level of information. And the tower conversation obviously gets eyes wide open in Rappahannock County for good reason. And I think I know the comprehensive plan is now mentioned an 80-foot tower. And I think zoning is now, or the planning commission is now looking at our zoning to see what they need to change to make the towers more likely for folks like Chantel to come in and do the installations. Is an 80-foot tower going to be tall enough for you guys?
I think that was Debbie speaking. Debbie, yes, 80-foot can work in some locations. Sometimes 100-foot's not tall enough. It all really depends on ground elevation, coverage objective, and the like. But 80-foot is certainly workable. But there are some occasions where we may need to go higher. And I wouldn't. It's really not something to spend a lot of time on now yet, because we haven't gone out and actually released what we call search rings and try and piece a network together that's going to cover those 895 homes. Okay.
Thank you. I just wanted to get that out there right from the get-go.
Appreciate it.
You have questions for?
I was just wondering, for the beam service, what's the general cost for a family that wants to get that kind of service?
Great question. So our pricing will be 25, our lowest plan is 25 meg down and 3 meg up, and that's priced at $60 a month. And that includes 2 in-home Wi-Fi routers as well. So there's really no additional costs, like, you know, if you think of the cable model, like paying for the set-top converter. Everything's included in that $60, and it's essentially unlimited, except that the speeds are constrained to 25 meg down and 3 up. Okay. The next plan is 50 meg down and 5 megabit per second up, and that's priced at $80 a month. And again, that includes the 2 in-home Wi-Fi routers. And then lastly, for those customers who are in ideal RF conditions, they can qualify for the 100 meg down and 7 meg up plan. Does that answer your question?
What was the last price for the 100?
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't say that. Yep, you're right. Right now, that is priced at $160 a month. And there is an installation fee, unless they have a deal going. That installation fee is $99.
Is there a life, this is Ron Fraser, I'm sorry. Is there a term limit? I mean, a term of service on your contract? Is it
No.
like a year or 2 years?
Yeah, it's one of the great things about what we do is we believe in customer service. We don't want to lock you into a long-term contract. We want you to stay with us because you want to stay with us. So there is no contract required. Okay. And I will tell you, although we're only in our 6th month of service, our churn and the number of customers that leave us is extremely low, much lower than what we actually predicted. So feeling pretty good about the customer satisfaction of what we provide.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I expect you guys are getting hit just like the home builders right now, and it's hard to find workers and it's hard to find materials and everything else. With the deadlines and the requirements that certain jobs are finished within a certain period of time, how does Chantel feel with regards to those deadlines?
Great question. Stuart touched on this. The nice thing about working for Chantel is, having money in the bank isn't an issue. And as long as we manage ourselves well, our executive team has given us great flexibility to purchase materials well in advance. So we have not yet had any pressure in terms of material availability. Costs have certainly increased, but that has not slowed down our build plan either on the beam fixed wireless nor our fiber to the home. We believe this is generally going to be a blip, and we're going to get through this, and prices will come down. But right now, if you ask me what's the one thing I need more of right now, it's more RF engineers, right? Because you're certainly not the only county that has underserved locations, and you're proactively trying to find a way to get that fixed, right? Well, we've got a lot of these requests out there, and it's just very difficult to have enough engineers to get all the information we need, when we have these VATI deadlines and the like, right? And we're going to get through this, but that's been the biggest challenge in terms of supply and demand.
Dan, Gary Curry, if you spent any time looking at the information that was released on the American Reinvestment Plan and the speeds that were referenced earlier, which are 100 down and 20 up,
Yeah.
it's supposed to be 100, but they give you some leeway to drop that to 20. I view that as a barrier of some sorts for the board with the cash that they're going to be coming into pretty soon, and wondering if you've looked at that at all.
Oh, we did look at it, Gary. I think one of your speakers called it Daffy. I wrote that word down. You know, it's disappointing, right? Because, you know, I've driven around this Commonwealth, right? And there are some places where no matter how much subsidy is out there, you're not going to bring fiber to the home to, right? It just doesn't work, right? So I am remaining optimistic that you know, that Treasury Department guidance will be amended because otherwise it's going to be a challenge, right? I mean, you know, in this case, in your RDOF locations, well, that's already banked, if you will, right? But for example, if we were going to partner with you for beam to some of your other really rural parts of your county, and you had, you know, hopefully we're trying to use some of that money for that, you know, it is a challenge right now. We'd have to work through and essentially disprove the ability to provide fiber to the home to those certain locations that didn't have required density. And I'm probably speaking a little bit out of turn. I'll probably defer to Chris Kyle to speak more to this, if that's all right.
Well, and this is Brian. You know,
I'm
one
sorry,
other
Brian.
comment that I'll make on that is just that, you know, yeah, I agree with everything that Dan said. That was disappointing on some levels because, you know, there are some areas where fixed wireless really is going to be the solution. You know, and even the 100/20 is feasible for fixed wireless. But the fact that they put in that line that it has to be scalable then to 100 meg symmetrical was kind of the real kicker. But, you know, I think that there are still creative solutions forward. For example, if we were to partner on a VATI grant, you know, that is still in play and viable and something that we could use for Beam. So, you know, as we kind of get further along in our plans, you know, maybe we use some of the, you know, if that were the direction that the county wanted to go in, those ARP funds could be used for fiber and then, you know, use that as a cash match for a VATI grant or leverage for a VATI grant. And then the VATI grant is targeted more towards the fixed wireless services. So we still have some wiggle room. And again, hopefully there will be a carve out added where fixed wireless is still understood for the viable solution that it is and the important solution that it is for some of these areas. But barring that, you know, I think there are still ways we can move forward.
Straight up the hill, I sent you a message.
Thank you.
Mr. Whitson, Mr. Frazier?
Sure. This is Kier Whitson. During your presentation, and I don't blame you for doing so, but you quickly glossed over the appearance of Starlink in the market. And it turns out that there are at least a fair number of residents down in the southeast corner of the county who are enjoying blazing fast Starlink service.
Right.
So to the extent that we on the Broadband Authority know very well the individuals who comprise our board of supervisors in the county and know also our attitude towards cell phone towers, or the board of supervisors' attitude towards cell phone towers, and the very, very hard look that we give any application for a cell tower, how do you think we should view Starlink as your potential competitor? Because in an ideal world, I think we would love to have not a single tower in the county and yet have broadband service for everyone. How do we balance that in the coming years? Is it your view that it really is not commercially launched and won't be, or is it a real possibility? And should we hit the pause button until we can see if there's a way to do this without polluting the Rappahannock County landscape with even 80-foot or 100-foot?
That's a good question. I can't speak for Starlink. All I know is they haven't commercially launched. In terms of our business model, we believe that our beam fixed wireless competes very, very well with legacy services like DSL, with other fixed wireless providers that use unlicensed spectrum, and also satellite providers that offer data services. So, do I feel that I can compete effectively with fiber to the home? I do not, sir. And I won't compete there. But if you talk to our customer base, they're pretty darn excited about the broadband that we provide them, with speeds up to 100 meg. So not sure if I answered your question, but I probably have to think about it more.
I think
No, I appreciate it. It's not it's a bit of an unfair question because I recognize you can't speak for someone who's using totally different technology. It's just an interesting development for us.
Right.
As we try to figure out how to provide universal coverage and not change Rappahannock County in a fundamental way. And I have to say that when I hear the household number that you brought up over a 6-year period, and Mr. Curry could confirm this, but I believe that's probably around 25% of total households in the county to have, 12, 15, whatever the number is, cell towers or lattice towers serving a quarter of our county is it's an unsettling proposition. And so I'm just trying to wrestle with that. I just wanted to circle back and see what you thought about Starlink. So anyway, I appreciate your response.
Yeah.
And one thing I will say about Starlink and the people who have the service now is it's in beta. It's the beta. They're kind of in their testing phase, and they have some testing customers, and so there's a whole lot of focus on very few customers, and the very few customers aren't having to share the bandwidth with a lot of other people. I think they'll ultimately, for everyone, it would be a really good news story if Starlink solved the digital divide, right? I mean, if Starlink came out and they could get high quality anywhere you were, that you could get high quality broadband service, and that would be great. I think the test of Starlink is really going to be when they do commercially launch, and all of a sudden you've got to split that bandwidth amongst a whole bunch of different customers. I think that's where there's a lot of question marks. And as an illustrative example of that, again, Lonnie maybe can comment further on this, but the DHCD's position is that they're not considering satellite broadband, even Starlink, as served. So, all RDOF areas that were awarded to Starlink are still eligible and considered unserved for a VATI application. And so again, I mean, Starlink may do it, right? I mean, they may kind of shock us all and really pull it out. But at pretty much every level, the longevity of Starlink has just a lot of question marks around it.
We'll jump in and just say that, we were watching.
Keep going, Lonnie.
Oh, okay. I will jump in and just add that we are watching, what Starlink does and how it goes. We traditionally have excluded satellite as being counted as broadband provision because of, numerous issues with the medium. We recognize that Starlink is aiming to solve a lot of those, but it might be a couple of years before this is viable on a large scale and can solve the digital divide. And we see the digital divide as a very much right now problem. And so, we're open to changing our guidance in Starlink and SpaceX and all that, and maybe a few years when it's proven. But for the time being, there's a connectivity problem that needs to be solved now, and there are known ways of solving it. And that's why we've been looking at it that's why we approach it technology neutral, but we don't consider Starlink to be quite viable yet.
Dan and Brian, building on that, here recently we have a few conventional cell providers who are providing a home internet service. T-Mobile is one who just very nicely gave you a bunch of money. But their deployment, particularly on the Sperryville Tower, and maybe it's not very heavily loaded, is very, very fast.
Yeah.
and they are marketing their home service. Is that also a competitor for this, for uptake of customers? And do you also see those speeds potentially slowing down as it gets loaded?
Listen, I can't comment on T-Mobile's viability on anything, right? And I should also clarify, Gary, they haven't given us the money yet. So I will tell you, I have managed a wireless network for 20 years, okay? And what they're doing, and smartly so, they're saying, hey, we're just building out in some of these rural areas, right? And we've got surplus spectrum, right? We've got surplus spectrum. Instead of just having it sit there, let's, create this, fixed wireless play and make use of that spectrum, right? And you're right, the speeds are blazing right now. And they're blazing because not a lot of customers on it, right? But once they complete their acquisition of Sprint, right, and they have a real viable mobile network in the central and western part of Virginia, which they haven't had, I suspect that those blazing speeds, similar to another competitor we just talked about, maybe won't be quite as blazing, okay? Because in an RF world, in a wireless world, whether it be satellite, or whether it be on the ground, you have a very, very, very scarce resource, right? And you need to protect it because it exponentially decreases the more users come on it, okay? And I can assure you, though, that in the fixed wireless network that we're building it exclusively for fixed wireless, and it's going to be exclusively designed for the exact number of customers that we need to provide service to.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else for the Chantel gentleman? All right, thank you, gentlemen, very much. I really appreciate it.
I have a question of timing, and you ended your presentation with seemed to be a rather definitive statement that you were a willing partner for VADI. And how do you envision this process going forward, and with the Broadband Authority, or perhaps the Board of Supervisors, or maybe both, I'm not sure, expressing an equal intention or measuring their options? Obviously, we talked about timelines and critical time dates. How do you see this moving forward in that regard?
Brian,
Yeah,
I'll
I
let you
think,
go. Okay.
There are several, again, pieces that we're kind of trying to get to lay flat right now with our own internal analysis, and we went through identifying unserved areas, building a high level network design, working with our team internally. We're hoping in the next week or two to have the model pretty well laid out. And then after that, we would be able to start moving pretty quick, pretty meaningfully. So I think, we would look to have recurring meetings every 2 or 3 weeks, probably. And then kind of get that closer together to maybe weekly as we get closer to some of these key dates. But with county officials, and obviously, we expect you to do your due diligence and take your time and measure your options. But again, I think we're a very strong candidate and partner when it comes to VADI. So I think we would suggest setting up recurring meetings as we kind of work through this network design, get your feedback on that, refine that, and see what the opportunities are, and work to find a win-win. And then, again, start meeting with the DHCD staff and Lonnie pretty shortly after that, after we kind of were to solidify a partnership, then we would, I think, want to start meeting with DHCD and get their feedback as well.
Right. And I don't speak for the authority board or the board of supervisors or anybody else other than, I guess, county staff. But in my perspective, and particularly if we're trying to leverage RDOF and things like that, I'm interested in seeing a whole of county approach, and let's do something and for real and get a solution, and with reference to whatever levers are needed to make that happen. And then we all commit to work together to go get it, however it needs to happen. But that's just me speaking, and I wouldn't put, so I don't know what you have planned, but that's where I'm coming from.
Yeah, I think that lines up exactly with what we'd be looking for.
Previously, are there any counties that you've partnered with in this way that we could read their applications and see what sort of approach you took? Or is there, you recommend we review?
Absolutely. So the 3 that we submitted applications with, none of them were awarded last year, were Campbell County, Bedford County, and Franklin County. Now, the difference that you'll see with those applications was that our fixed wireless offering wasn't up and running in those counties, at that time to be ready for those applications. So there's been a whole lot of work between now and then, a whole lot of maturation of our processes and our technologies. So that would give you a general idea, kind of how it would go. But what we would be bringing to you all is a much more mature process. And again, all credit to DHCD that, they've been very good at working with providers and county applicants, not only on the front end of the process, but also on the back end to go through the lessons learned and go through, this was your application and this is how it was scored and this is how we thought about it and this is why it was or wasn't awarded. So that would give you an idea of those 3 counties. But the last thing I'll say is that there's a lot of other neighboring counties that there may be some synergies from working with as well. Moving forward, taking kind of a whole county approach.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question, realizing that you also have RDOF funding for Madison County that you acquired. Does it make sense to look at that sort of a way forward?
Yeah, I will say, I don't know, Stuart, Dan, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know if we've had material discussions with Madison County yet about VATI, but there are certainly other counties close by that we have talked with. So we agree. A regional approach makes a lot of sense.
I did speak with Ms. Cullors from Warren County today, and she thinks there is an opportunity, but has not brought that to their committee at this time to agree to any type of regional commitment. But it seems to make a lot of sense. If you're going to be all around, we could maybe get more funding through the VATI program if we're doing it regionally versus one-offs.
Mr. Frazier has his hand raised.
Mr. Frazier?
Excuse me. Yes, I guess I need to ask questions as they come to me. But what I was thinking, the RDOF money is for those 895 underserved area houses, correct?
That's
so that's basically the southwestern part of the county, or as I was looking at the map, since it borders Madison, it's mostly the Piedmont district and I guess parts of Stonewall. But so if you were to use the county-wide approach that Mr. Curry suggested, there's no RDOF funds for that, is it? Am I correct there?
The RDOF funds that were awarded are the 895 homes in the southeastern portion of your county, as well as the northwest.
It looked like southwestern, I'm sorry. Southeastern would put you over next to Culpeper, not Madison.
It borders both. It's kind of that corner there.
Well, I guess what I'm getting at is I'm in the easternmost part of the county and it wouldn't be on that map. The area that I represent and the homes that are having trouble there.
But Mr. Frazier, I think the overall concept would be VATI or maybe American Rescue Plan or some other grant program.
Right, well, that's what I'm trying to get at. The RDOF funds would not necessarily do anything outside that initial 895 homes.
Yep, that's absolutely correct.
So we'd have to come up with some other alternative funding, whether it's county funds or another grant.
Yep, that is correct. That is correct. And that's where the VATI grant would come into play again, or American Rescue Plan funds, something to that effect. But the advantage of having that RDOF there is, that's an unserved portion of the county that's getting service. And, again, Lonnie, correct me if I'm mischaracterizing this, but that frees us up to focus on, with a VATI grant, on the unserved portions of the rest of the county. And that inches us towards, not inches, it moves us substantially towards essentially what becomes a functional universal coverage of the county, which is a high priority for VATI. So if we were able to put something together that moves us in that direction in a phased approach that's part of a broad countywide approach, then it's a much more attractive VATI grant, I believe, not only from our perspective, the county's perspective, but also from the HCD's perspective.
I think at the highest level, a project in Rappahannock County would be cost effective for a commercial provider under certain circumstances. And those circumstances aren't zero investment from outside dollars, or else it would be done by now. And so RDOF is chipping away at some of that. VATI could chip away at some of that. The American Rescue Plan money could chip away at some of that. Cash that's still left from CARES could chip away at some of that. So if you bring enough resources to the table, then a Shentel or someone like them can bring the commercial aspect to the table and have a business that's viable that wouldn't otherwise be viable without that outside investment.
Right, understand that. But if we're looking at 11 to 12 towers for 2/5 of the county roughly, then what would that build out plan look like to try and get universal coverage?
I guess
30 towers?
We're going to find out. It depends on terrain and what towers exist and everything else.
Also wanted to add real quick that the VATI guidelines are currently being rewritten, and the public comment period, I believe, on them just ended. But the current draft guidelines actually allow RDOF money to be kind of leveraged as part of a VATI grant. And so I think the idea is more or less, if a provider were to speed up the construction of some of those RDOF passings, and then they can include the RDOF areas in the application and receive some form of VATI support for them. Now, there's a lot more details than that, that exist. It's a little bit complicated, but I'd recommend checking out those draft guidelines for everyone involved, because there could also be some potential synergy there.
All right. I think we're good. It looks like we're good from the folks on Zoom. I would like to thank you, gentlemen, for being here and answering questions and clearing some of ours up. And I look forward to finding out what the direction forward will be for Rappahannock County.
Thank you, folks.
Thanks so much.
All right.
My email's always open.
Actually, I invited her because she has been doing a lot on the subsidizing side of things for the families that have children, and I thought it would be good for her to give us an update.
So I pulled together a bunch of possible funding grants, and I gave Gary a copy, and I don't know what you have seen, what you haven't, but I know one that you haven't seen is this diagram that I'm showing you. Just last week, through E-rate, they established the Emergency Connectivity Fund, which releases $7.1 billion to go to schools and libraries. So it works much like E-rate, where we would put it out to bid, and then you know, whatever the bid process, and the amount we get that I'm not sure yet is based on our free and reduced lunch, which is 75%, which is significant. That's our percentage rate off, not a free reduced lunch. So we get a 75% discount. But they will, any student that does not have connectivity, we can build fiber out to, or any, the cell tower or whatever, we can build out to them through this funding. Which if we all work together to make this happen. So it's significant. This is a big deal and it's never been done before. So I talked to Amanda Wheatley, the director of the library. I'm meeting with her tomorrow. The only requirement for the library is that they have to be a patron. So if they have a library card, they're a patron. So that would open up a lot of doors for the county also. So it would be getting residents and student families that do not have access.
So it's just another maybe couple buckets of
Right.
money to
And I
add
think
to
if Amanda and I work together and figure out, you know, I will help her through the process, and it's just filling out the grant, which I do on a regular basis. So that's very exciting for the school district. Chantel is actually, that's our fiber provider, Chantel. And I don't know how their towers work, but their service, we've had them for 3 years and we've never had a down day. So, I mean, that's, to me, after coming from our previous provider, which it happened weekly, it's significant.
Is there a deadline on this?
They just announced this. They're gonna open up the application in June. And then, so then we put it out to bid, and then we put out the application and do the bid process. So, and I haven't got the firm dates, but I'm gonna move forward with this. But I want to keep you guys in the loop on this, because we don't want to be redundant of what we're able to get done, what you're able to get done. But I'm pretty excited. This is historic.
And I don't think we know the full amount of investment the state is interested in making right now. The governor, as I noted in a different, maybe just an email, the governor put out a release that said that with all of this American Rescue Plan money and the $7 billion and this and that they wanted to accelerate his 10-year plan to 18 months. So that can't happen without significant investment. And we may not know what that significant investment is intended to be from the state level at this point in time. And we're very interested to find out.
I am very interested, but I've got to call into the broadband person for the state of Virginia. And so hopefully I will hear back from him to see, you know, what else there is to offer us.
I think it'll be great if we can work together. There might be some overlaps that we could.
Exactly. And I think if you have a mass library card sign up, that would be a wise thing to do now.
I believe right now there are a couple thousand out there. So
yes. So between the schools and library, that's going to help out a lot, I think. Absolutely. But there is a list of, and I don't know what you've seen because I'm not aware of what you all do, but a list of possible funding, because that's what you asked. So I did. And any way I can help this process. You know, it only helps our students.
I was at social services today on a different matter. We did talk a little bit about the subsidy program. It doesn't run through them at all. It's an FCC program. They were just pushing the information out to the public. We can continue to look into that information, how long it will last.
It's $50 a month, I think, is the subsidy. And we actually have 65 Wi-Fi spots out through T-Mobile now in the county. And it depends on the way the wind's blowing sometimes to whether it works or doesn't. Some people, it's great, and some people, they have to put it in a certain window and so it's not reliable, but it helps them to connect. It's not perfect, but it's the best we have right now.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Please do keep us informed, and if you're at our meetings, we can always share information back and forth with them as well.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm hopeful that we can engage a partner who will work with us to start digging out all of these different revenue pots. Yeah, absolutely. Just shoot me an email.
All right, thank you very much. think that's it on the presentation side. And we can move into the regular agenda item, which is potential broadband funding. I feel like we've talked about it throughout today. And I don't know if there's anything that you all want to discuss about the VATI or ARPA.
Well, I would just say that the authority board at some point in time probably is going to have to identify investment opportunities and determine what level of investment may be required to help facilitate a project or projects. Then I guess you're going to have to ask the Board of Supervisors whether the level of investment is appropriate. And the logistics from there, I think, are relatively easy. It's just determining how to slice up the pie and the different revenue sources that are available, what grants to go after. If you do use ARPA money, can you meet these requirements, or will the requirements change? This 100 up, 100 down. So there's a lot there. Or I suppose you could just say we're going to do fiber and we're just going to take as long as it takes and keep looking for grant money until grant money runs out. And it may take a long time, but if that is the will of the body, then you can do that.
So with what we have in our packet, the note that says 100 up, 100 down.
That is the interim final rule. I'm not sure what those three words mean together. But that is the guidance that we have right now for the $1.4 million that either all or half will be landing in our bank, the county's bank account this month. And will have to be spent in the next, I think, 3 years or so.
Will you be reaching out to other counties to see if everybody is as shocked as we are with these numbers, and see if we can write a letter that says you guys?
Yeah, I imagine that sort of thing. Well, I can do that. Mr. Feynman may be ultimately, we would love to have that. That's what we want for the future, right? 100 up, 100 down. That's pretty future proof, and does what we need for our foreseeable future. And someday in the future, they'll look back and say, how did you ever live on 100 up, 100 down? But I think that would be a state-led push, leveraging state and federal delegation to then push back through to the legislation side, because the politicians all did this wonderful thing for us with these trillions of dollars, but these strings are attached to it. And so to what extent can those strings be changed now that the politicians have finished their work? I don't know. But if the politicians know it doesn't work for us, we should let them know.
Yep, absolutely. And moving on to the community broadband mission vision. I know.
So are we going to send letters? It sounds like we're contemplating sending letters.
We're contemplating sending a letter.
So, I mean,
I think you should engage Mr. Feynman, see if the state is taking a position on this. If the state is receiving billions of dollars and they're ready to make billion-dollar investments to cause 100 up, 100 down to happen, well, then we don't need to fight against that. We'll open the bank account and allow it to flow in, or let them do it for us, or whatever. But if that is not in the cards, because that kind of money isn't available, then we obviously, speaking for the community, want broadband.
Right. So
we'll have to get it any way we can, and I don't know how else the board could possibly spend $1.4 million and meet the. I'm sure there are many, but it would be as meaningful to the public as that. Yeah.
So maybe the letter to Mr. Feynman is a question as to what our leaders were thinking with those numbers.
Yeah, I think we need to. I mean, I would ask that the chair, the county administrator, or someone from the county reach out to Mr. Feynman. It sounds like Dr. Bolt's going to be speaking to him as well, and say, hey, we really want to go big on broadband, but we are very concerned that these up and down speeds are going to be prohibitive. Must make any headway.
Right.
It was going to be prohibitive.
the 100 up, 100 down is gonna be prohibitive.
Yeah.
So,
Unless they know something we don't know.
So.
well, and if they do, that's great, but if they don't,
It stops us from being able to use that money.
right, we want to be able to get something. Money.
I don't quite understand everything. This 100 up, 100 down, is that through the air or is that through cable?
It doesn't matter, but practically speaking, it's through a fiber optic line because technology through the air is very difficult to get those speeds. You did see in the Lonnie's presentation, this discussion of RFI. Obviously, you have a willing partner in this presentation from Chantel. Does the body want to put something out there, even if it's general, to see what other potential interested parties are out there, knowing that Chantel has their $700,000 in their pocket and have to serve that southern corner of the county if they want that money. They don't have a choice. It seems highly unlikely that you're going to find somebody to go and compete in that area with them because that federal money is already kind of scheduled. But this would be an opportunity for you to potentially put an RFI in the street and find out that you're going to split the county down the middle, or data stream from the north and Chantel from the south, and maybe they have slightly different technology and different cost efficiencies. I don't know. Both have spoken about having fiber and wireless. Both have talked about having purchased the CBRS wireless spectrum. So they're similarly positioned, although obviously Chantel is a much larger company, and only one of them is about to receive $1.9 billion for the sale of their cell company. And then the other is we do have a lot of data from the schools, and I'm wondering at what point, even under NDAs, could maybe more granular information be shared with providers if they don't disclose it?
I had an interesting conversation with someone from Piedmont Broadband that came by just to take care of a problem that I had. They consider themselves to be a viable ongoing business in this county, and they are hopeful that they will also be able to upgrade their service with, when we talked about the ideas that money was going to be out there. They think they can do a lot to bring the 25.3 level if they have the capital investment for upgrading the service. I just don't want us to forget them, that an RFI might address the question of allowing them to compete too. And they don't use towers, they use trees and stuff.
Well, and so is that investable? Using the trees is probably not investable from a body standpoint.
Right.
But hardening could work, and we talked about that before, but the 25.3 was really kind of out of the question for them.
They think they can get that if they have, and he listed the different kinds of.
Right. So it isn't an easy process, and
Given our timelines for VATI, if we did an RFI, would have to be quick, I would assume.
yeah, you want to do it in a way that continues to interest your potential partners to gear up and continue to explore opportunities and explore the financial gap. And if one provider, say Chantel, thought that you were just going to go another direction, they may focus somewhere else where they thought their opportunities are greater. If same for Piedmont Broadband or Data Stream or some other provider, All Points Broadband, who really haven't been much of a player, so to say, here in these discussions.
Our authority members, what are you thinking? I would hate to kind of slap Chantel in the face by saying we're going to go out for an RFI. But on the other hand, there are other providers. So not many of them have what Chantel has from a business bank account and ability to get the job done in a given timeline. But I really would like to hear if everybody is.
Well, I mean, I think in any time we spend taxpayer dollars, we should do it, with as thorough a background as we can. And I agree that it would be probably very challenging to find someone that brings as much to the table as Chantel, but that doesn't mean that we should look. And the other question that I think always kind of tags along with everything we do is not only, okay, is this a good idea to do, but is who is going to do it? If we decide to put an RFI out, I've looked at some from rural counties before, and we can put out a very general document, but it still requires someone to take ownership of that process. And is someone willing to do that, and what does that look like? And the runway is very short, as we've all said. So if we're going to do it, we need to do it sooner than later.
A little unusual, but go ahead.
Well, one suggestion is you got already kind of a set of qualifications and capacities on the table from Chantel. You can put out can anyone match or beat these kind of a notice very quickly. That'll expedite things quite quickly. Experience writing applications, existing customer base and experience, existing options for different kinds of modalities, fiber, wire, wireless. You put together 5 or 6 things and you ask somebody, here's what Chantel's got. Can you come close or beat this? You're gonna get answers quicker than having more broad questions. So I kind of think it would be better to compare them against what's already on the table.
Yep. Mr. Whitson, Mr. Frazier, any input on these?
Yeah, could I had my hand raised, so maybe take that off, but yeah, I think that we should go ahead and do that RFI. And because if you're looking at covering other parts of the county, I mean, we have a hodgepodge of connections right now. We have Comcast, we have Piedmont, we have I guess Chantel in some areas, but we have areas that are served, and to try and build out over top of systems that are already there may not be practical from a standpoint where we're looking at the bottom line, what it's going to also cost to do that. So I don't think we need to be recreating the wheel in some districts, but if we put out an RFI at the same time that we're applying for that VAD or however you pronounce it, I think we'd be getting ahead of the curve here. But somebody like Supervisor Smith says, we've got to have somebody to kind of take ownership of this, maybe a subcommittee of our authority, and get to work on it. We talked about this a month ago about an RF. Somebody wanted to put out an RFP a month ago. Now we're being suggested by Mr. Hamilton earlier that we put out an RFI. We've known about this for how long, and we're still talking about how we're going to do it. We just got to do it.
Well, as far as what I heard, Dr. Bolt said she's written a lot of grants. And I know Ms. Bond has already written an RFP. So I would expect we can find something closer to what Mr. Summers was saying, and put it together pretty rapidly, because it really wouldn't be as detailed, I think, as if we were starting from scratch.
But who's going to do that, though?
I have to find a grant writer. No, not a grant writer, an RFI writer. Yeah.
Writing the documents up is, I don't think that's very complex. The approval process that the authority wants to take to bless the document before it is pushed out into the world, that's critical. Yeah, and then how are you going to handle it when you get responses? and if there's requests for clarification during the process.
Well, that's a good question. But I think we can call a special meeting just to have the approval process of the document that goes out. But you do have a good point of what do we do for clarification of questions?
Yes, ma'am.
What I normally do is set a date where I meet with everyone at one time and they can ask any question they want. And then, so that you're not bombarded constantly with questions, that this is your date to come, ask questions. And that way everyone's on the same page also.
Mr. Hamilton, I see you're still on the call. Is this something you could help us with?
No, I was actually just about to ask if I should be talking or also be listening to this. So I'm glad that I'm still allowed to be at this meeting. Yeah, we have an RFI draft on the Commonwealth Connect site that you can use as a template. And so that should cut down on a lot of the drafting time for that. I'm sorry, what was the other question?
I'm just trying to figure out how we can get this done pretty rapidly.
Oh yeah, I think it would make sense to try and get one written up, and a special session might not be a bad idea because your next scheduled meeting would be just past mid-June.
Why don't we pick a day to meet with Dr. Bolt and do the question process?
I mean, if the authority board wants to ask the board of supervisors to task their county administrator to do this before all the other things, that can get done. But you know, there's 24 hours in a day. We split them up however the people want them split up.
If the authority feels comfortable, I don't mind taking the lead on trying to put together the core group of people that can write this fairly quickly, and then call a special session just to have us go over it to make sure you're in agreement. And then we just need a deadline on when we have to have it out by and when we expect the RFI's return by. And then we'll have hopefully a meeting. Well, the meeting will be the 21st of June, I believe. So hopefully we can have all that done by then.
Well, I mean,
Okay. You don't think it's likely?
You've got to give a.
Yeah, people time to get their research done.
Yeah, and the problem is you've got to submit this notice in July, so
You're going to be working on both at the same time is the problem.
I think the more you're very clear saying, here's what's on the table, you have to tell us very specifically how you're going to meet or beat this. Makes your reading and review process quite simple. So the more straightforward your RFI is, the easier it is to do the review process. And you're trying to find a partner, you're not offering to give them money, you're just going to go with them and ask for money from others.
Right.
So, you know.
But man, if you don't leave it open, someone might come up with a better idea.
I'm not saying you don't leave it open, but at some point you gotta say, look, here's an offer that's on the table. We clearly know the parameters of what Chantel has to offer from a variety of perspectives. Why not say you have to come with something that's close to this or better, or we're not going to partner with you.
Right.
We don't have time. You don't have time to spend time having a lot of conversations. I think Gary's question is what's going to happen when people who aren't going to get selected start beefing. You've got to find a dance partner to go get this money, and the money's not going to wait for you to do that.
Yeah.
Mr. Fraser's hands up.
Yes, Mr. Fraser.
I was thinking, Ms. Donna, you volunteered to do that, but couldn't we just add one more member of the authority to it to make it like a task force so that you're not shouldering all this responsibility to get this thing done?
You volunteered? I thought you were Mr. Summers. I think what our conversation is right now is, do we have time to be able to do this in time to have the partner to go to the Valley with?
Well, just from a FOIA perspective, if the authority identifies members and creates a committee, then you just have to notice those gatherings, even if there's only two. If the chair or a member goes outside of the meeting process to do some work and then provides it back to the authority, I don't think that those are meetings. I think both are doable. We just have to work in those confines.
Yeah, I don't think that that's a FOIA concern, two members working as a task force.
Well, it depends on who assigns them. If the authority board assigns those members, or committee of the full body, and I think that's a public body and a public meeting.
Well, whatever we got to do something. I mean, we went another month talking about what are we going to do and how are we going to do it.
An application is open for VATI on June 17th. That's where I'm running into a deadline.
Yeah, opens June 17th. Notice must be in by July 27th.
Well, is it too difficult to just send everybody a copy of that template and maybe one other RFI that's already went out from some other jurisdiction? I mean, how difficult is this to do?
I don't think it's very difficult at all.
Well, then why do we keep talking about it? We ought to just go ahead and do it.
Okay.
How long do we have to
What?
give?
Just send it to me in email. We'll move it from there.
Okay. Anybody have any difficulty with the county administrator being involved if the board allows that?
That's fine with me.
Okay.
Not that you guys are deciding anything about that.
No, I said if the board. All right, I think we've got our path forward. I'm just worried about the timeline. So Mr. Curry, if you and I can work on that as soon as possible, that would be great.
See you Wednesday morning at 7:30.
Yes, that's a good point. All right, if we're okay moving forward, not seeing any hands raised. The broadband mission and vision was the thing we left open last month. That was interesting. Did anybody have any edits that they would like to recommend to the vision or the mission?
I looked at a couple of other counties and the way that they do it. I looked at Orange County and they have it on their website and theirs is just very broad. I was wondering, is there a reason that we're being so very specific? Their vision is a rural community where everyone has access to next generation broadband. Their mission is bringing affordable broadband service to our community, one connection at a time, while enhancing overall quality of life and fostering economic development. I think we changed fostering economic development to preserving her rural landscape, and change they have an objective of reducing capital costs and startup expenses for private sector providers to provide next generation broadband service in unserved and underserved areas of our rural community with a choice. So I wondered why we've already said it in the comprehensive plan. Why aren't we just having some nice language for this organization?
The language that you just read sounds great. It's two different sausage making processes coming to two different ends, and I kind of like theirs better.
I read it and I was like, well, I love it. It's general. We could change it a little bit to make it more specific to Rappahannock and just run with it from there. And I just started pulling up some comparables the other day, but I'm happy to try to work something out with this if everybody thinks it's maybe a less technical, more appealing way forward.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, this one came from the broadband committee, and the comprehensive plan, I think, just copied it. So that you are correct, that is already in the comprehensive plan.
Right, but your mission and vision for the authority doesn't have to align with that, and the comp plan can change in the future if it was so appropriate.
I don't think it causes a problem, so I'm fine with that if you want to do that.
Sounds good.
Just a vision.
Okay.
I'll keep it short and sweet.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
And this avoids the whole discussion of ARPA requiring 100 up, 100 down, 120,
Right.
so all that stuff.
All right. Do we have anything? Oh, open board discussion at this point. mean, the only thing I heard tonight that was a little disconcerting was the number of towers that,
They did say small.
yes. The clarification of that would be.
Well, and I think the other thing that we've discussed, or a similar organization known as the Board of Supervisors has discussed, is that in contemplating small towers, we are not only talking about the size, but would be talking about encouraging camouflage towers, which, you know, the wooden tower idea was, I think, made to discourage putting up towers at all because it's difficult to achieve an 80-foot tower with a wooden pole. So if we're contemplating actual 80-foot towers out of other materials besides wood, there should be emphasis on also camouflaging those towers appropriately. And I think if we keep that focus, and hopefully everyone will, that hopefully that will put aside some of the resistance to those smaller towers.
And having seen the planning commission agenda for the next meeting, that topic is on the agenda for preliminary discussion. And I'm sure that commissioners will, as with input from Mr. Whitson, will understand that that is a critical component, and the idea is administratively approvable towers that fit in a very specific mold. And the camouflage is one of those things. So I think a Chantel or any other company would want to know that, because with towers, certainty is so important. You go through this protracted 10, 12 month public hearing process and come out the other end like at Eldon and you don't get it. But they could more easily go to a short tower in a couple locations that are well hidden and camouflaged and know that they can get them as a guarantee. That's a big deal for them. That's got to be okay to the community after public hearings.
These towers are obviously going to go on private property, right? And
Anywhere,
there's
I
going to
guess.
be a lease,
Yeah.
a lease for the space and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But being as they're that size, there's no county approval.
There would be county approval, but that's what the planning commission is going to look at. What rules in the zoning ordinance should be wrapped around a short tower? If you have a short tower that's under 80 feet or 100 feet or whatever feet, the comp plan right now contemplates 80 feet, and you camouflage it and it's located this certain distance away from certain types of roads, can you put enough protections in where the planning commission, the board of supervisors, and the community through the public hearings on this ordinance feel like, well, if you can meet all those things, you put it wherever you want. We don't want it, we're not going to go through a public hearing process. It needs to be a little bit restrictive because we know you just don't want towers thrown up right alongside Route 231. You don't want it, back off 231 so that it's not, immediately visible. But if it's camouflaged and 1,000 feet off 231, then, and it's 80 feet tall, many people are probably going to never see it.
Any other open board discussion? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion for adjournment.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.